I'm like the dark in the clouds on a rainy day.
Welcome to episode 2 of the 2022 Honda Africa Twin Test. In the previous episode, I spent my time on the standard Africa Twin, whilst Clubby rode the top of the range DCT version. In this episode, we trade places, and we head out west for a 400km loop that has freeway blacktop and some rough twin trail. In his role as editor of Australian Adventure Bike magazine, Clubby goes into photographer mode in this stuff called sunshine, something we haven't seen in a long while.
Praying to the weather gods, Clubby.
Oh. Now, I'm not a biblical man, but yes, I'm more than prepared to pray this time for more than one day of blue sky. Like, how good is this? It's not pouring down and flooding everywhere.
These Hondas have been garage bikes. Honestly, they've been in the garage about a week.
You know, they've gone under a ladder, through a mirror, across a black cat when it comes to the weather, haven't they? But we've got it today, so let's make the most of it, eh?
Yeah, it's great. The white one's really stands out there, looks classy, but then I go over and I look at the red one. Oh, it's very hard to decide which colour I like. Both of them are very attractive, aren't they?
Well, I think initially the red one just pops, doesn't it? And it's a traditional Honda racing colours.
Yeah.
But then the white one grows on you.
It does.
And the old red, white and blue is Honda traditional HRC colours as well.
Yeah.
No, they're bangers. They both look good.
They look lovely.
Look great.
Before I head up here, I'll just get this screen down, I think. So 2 hands. And that's it. And we'll put it in manual. God, you know, old habits die hard. I just tried to flick it up a gear.
What's it down there, Clubby? Is that a second parking? That's the park brake.
Yeah, another caliper for the parking brake, mate.
Yeah, just...
Because if you park that thing on a slight hill, it will roll away from you.
Yeah. Just there. God, Clubby, it's good to get away.
Oh, did you hear that bird just then? Were you recording then?
Yeah, lyrebird.
How good was his whistle?
That is a lyrebird, my friend. The Clubby and I have changed bikes, and he's gone for the standard. Initial impressions, mate?
It feels lighter, like significantly lighter than the DCT and the ES. It also feels like it steers quicker, this one. The front end feels different compared to the bigger bike. Might be the tyres, I guess. These are a bit more road oriented on the tar. But isn't it funny how I'm on this and I'm liking aspects of it, but then I want aspects of that one incorporated into this one, if that all makes sense. You know, like I definitely prefer the less weight of this bike. I thought initially when I was riding the DCT last week, oh, what's this whole DCT thing about? What's the benefit of it? But mate, how much easier is that one to ride in traffic when you're not concentrating on shifting with your foot and clutching with your hand? I mean, yeah, sounds elementary, but it is an easier ride on the tar in traffic. Hands are freezing this morning, so I'm missing the heated grips off the Adventure Sports model. And the other thing I'm missing from the Adventure Sports is a taller screen, I reckon. Just for a bit more wind protection out of the wind this morning. Not that it was windy, but out of the cold, I should say. So you kind of pick and choose, don't you, of the different features. And I think it's a 4-bike hierarchy, isn't it, with the Africa Twins? Between the standard and the full top of the range model, you've got 4 different levels of spec. And I think, yeah, that's a real key factor will be looking at the specs of the 4 different models and picking and choosing which particular one's going to suit your application. And I think at the moment, yeah, I prefer this one for the weight saving, for sure, the money saving, but there's a few more deluxe features from the Adventure Sports that would be nice to have on this one as well.
100 kilometres on this bike now. Clubby and I have traded places. Have to say I'm really enjoying it. The things that Clubby identified are the things that I'm loving. I'm loving those heated grips. Got down to 5 degrees as we came out of the valley and wound our way up to Bilpin, and loving the heated grips. This screen is great. I've got that on its highest setting now, and I'm just protected, and it's I feel like I'm in this lovely cocoon of still air as I talk about, but it's just great. And you can easily flip that down. There are less complicated systems on some other bikes. You need 2 hands and you push that down, but you know, it works well. But the elephant in the room is the DCT, and I've got to say I'm loving it. I didn't think I'd adapt to it, but I do. I really like it. And what it got me thinking is, although this bike is slightly smaller capacity than, say, what's generally known as a super tourer, you know, around 1200 cc's, it certainly behaves like a super tourer in the conditions that I've ridden in so far.
Bell's line of road, lovely sunny day. Clubby's on the standard bike. I'm on the Adventure Sports with DCT. And I've got to say, I've been loving it. It's so cruisy with the automatic transmission. I've got to say, I'm becoming a bit of a fan of it. All right, let's get this baby going. All right, no clutch. Put it in the drive and we're away. Just twist the throttle. Now, I don't know if you noticed then, the way the bike was changing up gears was really quickly and seamlessly and at very low revs. And yeah, that's one way of doing it, but you've got a number of different settings for that automatic. And although that one's good, the one that I like is S2, or probably Sport 2 it is. And by listening to a number of the subscribers' comments on our initial test, it seems like a lot of people are like me, that they like the S2 setting. Yeah, the gears are, well, the bike is more responsive in terms of changing gears, so it changes gears a little bit with a bit higher revs. Very easy to go over the speed limit here on this bike. And I'm trying to think of where it sits. You know, super tourers normally have, you know, just a little bit more engine capacity, and I can't help but think that this bike in this configuration sits within that super tourer class. It's amazingly comfortable. It's got all the electronics you need. I've been loving the heated grips. It's got down to about 5 degrees as we've climbed into the mountains. There's something relaxing about not changing gear. It's something unfamiliar with me. I'm looking forward to riding it on the dirt. The bike certainly feels heavier and less responsive to input than the standard bike. You know, and when you think about it, there's 2 things going on there. There's much greater fuel capacity, and I've got the bike full at the moment, and you've also got the weight of the DCT system itself, which, you know, those 2 combined things put 30 kilograms on the bike. But for many riders who, you know, just want to go on easy stuff and open gravel roads and, you know, do the easier stuff, 30 kilos doesn't really matter.
From the previous episode, we discussed accessing traction control, ABS and other settings for off-road use. We also made manual adjustments to the suspension on the standard red model that significantly improves suspension performance for off-road use. So I'm not going to go back to that, as the information and our views are there in episode 1. The suspension on this DCT version is fully electronic. Prior to hitting the dirt, I ensured that preload was on its highest setting and damping characteristics were close to their highest settings, but I still had some room for adjustment.
The bottom of the second, isn't it? Here's mine. What were you in, 1 or 2?
Here's the one. Here's the one.
Oh, there you go. Right.
Power. Okay, so we want to up the power. Up the power. We want engine braking. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Suspension damping. I think we'll put that hard. Front suspension damping we'll add. Rear we'll make harder. Off-road. Preload, I think that's right. Preload rider.
How many options are there? Look at it all.
But that's okay now.
Meanwhile, after all this time, the Povo pack is up at the next buddy milk bar, having a rest.
Oh no, it's the same, isn't it? And now I want to get out of that. So what do I press? Just the top setting?
Left. Riding info will bring your dash back up there.
Okay,
so now you've got ABS off-road. Power is level 1.
Yeah.
As soon as I hit the dirt, it was apparent that handling characteristics of the DCT model were very different to the standard, and it's to do with those extra 30 kilograms. The standard bike feels more agile and responsive in the dirt. But don't get too hung up on that. The electronic suspension did a great job of soaking up those big hits, and the fundamental handling of the bike isn't compromised by that extra weight. I felt confident with the handling to push the bike at speed, and it behaved well. For a 250 kilogram bike, it goes alright in the dirt. In terms of the DCT, for the first half of the dirt session I had it switched to manual and I was using the paddles for gear selection. And access to the paddles in sitting or standing positions was good.
So I'll be frank with you, I haven't ride this in sport mode fully automatic. So Clubby's saying you cannot leave the dirt without doing that. So that's what we're going to do now. So I think he's allowed me to put it into Sport 3, you said, didn't you? So it's in S3. I've got to say I don't mind the paddle. You still got to get used to it, but it's okay. But we'll go for a run just in the sport mode itself. Everything else, all my other setup is exactly the same. So here we go, just see what happens. See what it picks. You can still see, I found myself then, I can still control it with the paddle if I want, but Clubby doesn't want me to do that. So I've just got to ride it just with S3 and see what it does. Okay, let's go. Yeah, it's gone up a higher gear than I want at the moment, and I nearly went into a rut. Well, brakes. Give it some. It's power sliding. Yep, it's power sliding, which is what I want. Yep, over that one. That's a fairly big jump. It doesn't look much at speed on the GoPro, but you're probably doing a couple of meters there.
Oi! What's going on?
You weren't supposed to get that.
What have you done?
Africa Twins down.
Well, someone said to me, if you back off, this is what happens. Anyway.
I bet the automatic has caught him. He's riding it in manual, trying to imply that he knows better than all those Honda... Oh, how's the pickup test? Oh, he got it up all right. Yeah, but trying to imply that he knows better than all those engineers at Honda, just by riding it like a manual bike. It's a DCT, Dave. Let the bike and its technology do all the work for you. Key off, Dave. Key off, Dave. Nice.
Out for some trail riding with Clubby in automatic, and I continue to leave it in the S3 selection as it's the most responsive to the trail riding that we're doing. I only occasionally manually override with the paddles because the auto is doing a good job. My view is starting to firm up as to what model of Africa Twin I would prefer. There's 4 to choose from, and it would be fair to say that although I've been impressed with the performance of the DCT, I would be choosing a manual version with the optional quick shifter that I'm familiar with, and I've found them to be very useful. And that option comes in at a very reasonable $400 Australian. So I'm down to 2 models. I love the base model as it's far more agile and responsive in the dirt, and I love riding in the dirt. But today it's been cold and I've enjoyed the heated grips and adjustable screen that didn't get in the way of my dirt riding when I put it on the lower setting. And then on the high setting it gave me great wind protection on freeway riding. I'd also like increased fuel range, and I appreciated the big tank of the DCT. I probably don't need it for too many rides, but when I do, it's very handy. I'm not really influenced by whether the tyres are tubed or tubeless, but fuel range and comfort define why I would lean towards the Africa Twin Adventure Sports. In terms of competition from other brands, the Africa Twin finds itself in a unique position. It's wedged between the highly competitive mid-sized adventure tourers of slightly less capacity and weight, and super tourers that are smothered in a range of options that pamper a rider. At a fundamental level, the handling and power and quality of the build of the Africa Twin for a dirt-oriented tourer is great. But it's a competitive market and buyers need to appreciate what they can get for their well-earned dollars. In comparison to about 50% of the competition, the Honda's ABS and access to traction and engine control is dated. As evidenced by the number of tests of new and or updated models on this channel, 2022 is a great year to be in the market for an adventure bike. The Africa Twins are worthy contenders to be considered in the top of that competition. Although not my favourite in the range of the 4 variants for the Africa Twin, I can understand why the DCT version has a loyal fan base. It makes motorcycling easy and relaxing, but then again, if you want to get hauling in the dirt, the bike has the capability and poise to take you on the dirt hard and fast.
Dark in the clouds on a rainy day. Oh, the fire in the hills and I'm headed your way. Oh, it's alright, baby, don't be afraid.
Whoops. Now, I don't know how many the bloody audience says, oh, have you given it a lift up test? well, there's your lift up test. But you know what? I've discovered something else that's just really good with Honda, and that's with these handguards. When I went over there and I heard a crack, if you come over here, Clubby, this is designed just to come through. This just comes through, and then you just undo that and tighten it back up, and it just fixes.
Designed to?
Designed to, yeah. See,
I think I'm going to have to come in from behind. What, it's like a slip-in fitting, you're saying?
Yeah, it's a slip-in fitting. So you just undo that, put it back in. Like when it gets hit, it just pushes out. And then all you got to do is just undo it and put it back in, and it's there.
No way.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
I don't know if you can. It's very hard to see.
Yeah, it's hard to see that little...
If you
Let's
come
just
from this
come
side,
around.
come
Yeah.
from around the other side.
Let me get some shade on it so it's nice.
Yeah, so
and
that's
consistent.
designed. That's designed just to pop out, and then you just put it in. So we would have never found that, Clubby, if I hadn't deliberately.
That's exhaustive testing, as they say, Dave. You've been right through it, haven't you?
Yeah.
But you still don't know what the G button stands for.
Gee, good.
G. And there it is, look, right there.
The G button.
The G button, so to speak. Oh.
So there you go.
Yeah, there you go on
something
those
we learnt.
plastic handguards.
So have you got any tools?
I've got a fleet of tools. I've got at least 3 tubeless puncture repair kits. Is that any good to you?
All right.
No, I've got a few spanners there.
All right, let's see if we can.
See what you can do.
So, Clubby, we need an Allen key to fix my handguard. Have we got one?
Look, this damn seat, we might even have one.
Come on, open it up before
Oh.
Christmas.
It's got a system.
It's a system.
There.
There you go. Look at that!
What?
An Allen key.
Now, if that fits in the end of that plastic handguard,
That's what it was designed for. Honda, you Honda engineers, I bet you it is. So we
that's
just
4
got.
mil, but this one's going to need 5. Oh. Story of my life.
Oh
Too
no.
big to go.
What about the other one? Hold your end. I bet you it does. Yeah?
Oh, yeah, it does.
It does.
But what's that
No,
going
that's
to
all right.
achieve?
Just undo it. I'm happy for you to undo that, and then just see what happens. Just see what happens.
Is this a separate part? Okay, maybe we can put this part in and then attach the
That's
handguard
what I'm
to
saying.
it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, buddy. And then stick that piece in.
Oh no, that's just to hold that.
Up we go.
So that's what fuel anxiety looks like.
Look, it's not really, Dave. Look, it's been showing empty for like 38 kilometres, but the range still says I've got 105 to go. So I reckon it's a pretty big reserve, hey? Let's see how much it takes.
Meanwhile, I'm on the super tanker. And we're doing very well, thank you. He had fuel anxiety, he's not admitting it. Look, his face is flushed. That's fuel anxiety, right there. That's him trying to cram into it. He's up to 13.9 litres.
It's an 18-litre tank, isn't it?
Yeah,
5-litre reserve, 4 or 5-litre reserve.
well, there you go.
No anxiety. Could have made it easy.
No anxiety, says the man with the Bowser in his hand. Yeah, so you can use your engine braking, and the great thing on this bike is you can change your engine braking too. You can give it more or less, control it. Heading back to Honda to take this Africa Twin back. I'm heading to Honda to take the Africa Twin back. It's been a really interesting time on this bike. I I didn't really appreciate how capable it was and the advances Honda had made in this bike over the years. You know, the model has been around a while, but they've certainly put the effort into improving it, and yeah, it's a great handling bike, can do anything. But I thought in these last couple of minutes while I'm riding the bike, I'd have a little bit more in-depth conversation about this DCT, because, you know, frankly, I don't think, if you haven't ridden one, you wouldn't have any idea of what it's about. So it's ostensibly an automatic bike, and in the D position, which it's in now, it took me a lot of time to get used to. Like, the bike's in 5th already, and we're doing 60 Ks, and it's at 2,000 reps. So when I first got on it and used this setting, the D setting, I just thought, why on earth have they got that changing gear like that? It just is counterintuitive to what I would expect as a motorcyclist. But as you get used to it, you actually see that it's actually really relaxing just to cruise along. You know, I'm in 6th gear now at 70 Ks. How crazy is that? And we'll come back up here. There's another traffic light. So I'm going to slow down. Alright, it's holding 5th gear at 48 kilometres an hour. Which is nuts. So it's really not it's not a selection I'd make for in the dirt. But what I found was just ambling along, a country road, it's actually quite relaxing. A lot of the Africa Twin riders out there have got back to us, like the setting Sports 2, and they recommend that. But anyway, I just thought I'd get in drive again, because my first impressions of that was, well, I'd never use that setting. The bike gets a bit chuggy, and it kind of takes on a kind of a tractor-like feeling, as the bike is at such low revs. But hey, 6th gear, 70 Ks. So with the flick of a button, I can flip into the sports mode. As soon as I go to S2, the gearbox selects 2 down. So it's gone to 4th gear at 66 Ks. So you can see it's a more, not aggressive, but in tune with what riders' expectations are. And as I'm braking now, it's gearing down, and it's geared down to 1st gear now. Oh, I should just get there, because they're gonna get in the road of me. Yeah, it takes a little while to get used to it. You keep searching for a gear lever, and you keep searching for the clutch. So there we are, 4th, 68, and S2, it keeps in a gear that in many ways I'd prefer, particularly in urban traffic where, someone might brake or you need to accelerate quickly, and, you're more in that meaty torque of the bike. But on country roads, I could sit on D all day. Which, when I first started riding the bike, I would have said there's no way in the world. Okay, so there's a Sports 3 as well. And I'm in Sports 3 now. Just got to hold on to the button. so up to 4,000 revs, and then it starts changing. So you're really starting to get into the full-on torque of this bike. You know, about 2.8 to 4, it's got a lot of grunt. And so the automatic in that selection uses that grunt. Now, when you get in the dirt and you've got it in auto, and you just leave it in auto, you can put it in the G setting, which makes it more aggressive for dirt still. Be frank though, I didn't have enough time to get my head around that. The majority of the time I spent was using the manual system, which is just the button here, and you can just flick it between auto and manual. So you can see up there now, that's manual, that's auto. So in auto you got the, let me say that again, in manual you've got your paddles, and they're just easily, you know, index finger, thumb, and they're really good. So you can really get hauling quickly and just maneuver around traffic. But you get engine braking, you know, you can see me there changing back, third, flick, fourth. Yeah, it's really interesting that all the Honda people say, no, we run around in S2. Because when I see myself actually using the gears manually, I'm changing it probably just about the same rev range as the auto. The $1 million question: would I pay an additional $6,000 over the price of the standard bike for this one? And it's a really, I thought the answer to that question would be easy. You know, as I've always said, the only place for weight is in a boat anchor, and this bike is 30 kilograms heavier than the standard bike. But it's not that simple. I love the way I can throw the, you know, 30 kilograms is a lot of weight, and it, as Clubby said, it alters the way the standard bike handles. It's much lighter feel, and you certainly can throw it around. The suspension on that too is adjustable and excellent, and oh, isn't that funny? I forgot to change the gears down because I had it in manual because I was talking to you, and it started saying, put the gears down, and it started flipping them down itself. Yeah, so getting back to that question, there's a model just one step up from the standard which has the bigger tank and it has the adjustable screen. And the other thing with these bikes is you can get a quick shifter for $400. I don't know. I love this bike. I think it's really good. But I think I'd go for one model up from the standard, and that's got the bigger tank. And the key influencer for me is the screen. The screen on this bike doesn't get in the way when you're in the rough stuff. You can put it down far enough. And then when you're in the, you know, you're going along at highway speeds, you can easily click it up, and it's got a very stable screen, and it's a, you know, it's a lovely environment behind that screen at speed. So a bit of a rambling as we get back. We didn't do quite as many kilometres as we hoped. The weather's been horrific, but you know, them's the breaks. I hope giving you a reasonable understanding of the Africa Twin in both its forms, DCT and standard. I'm still loving those heated grips. Now we've got to find Clubby. So we're heading back to the Honda store in Brookvale.